Ding here. Welcome back to another episode of Time Attack Rivals with, I wouldn't call it a rival, a best friend here.
Time Attack best friend.
Time Attack best friend. With my favorite car here this weekend. My knees are weak. I look at this and I didn't know until this day my body could produce semen, but there it is. Take it away, Josh. Go.
Your semen has stripes? That's pretty crazy.
Cut.
Hi guys, I'm Josh Roku. This is my 8.6. I'm a Time Attack competitor and I have been since about 2010. My first Time Attack being Global Time Attack in 2014. And I competed in this car. I actually have two 8.6s. One of them I run in Super Lap that you might have seen. I've got a coupe powered by an F22C. But this is my original Time Attack car, the V8 swapped AE86 hatch. It's pretty basic as far as its architecture is concerned. I tried to keep as much of it AE86 as possible. It has a Toyota transmission, a W58. It uses a Lexus 1UZ. The stock Lexus computer is still managing the engine. You know, it has a built differential. I've got some wide wheels and tires on it, 15 by 10s, -25 with some fresh Nankang AR1s, thanks guys. And you know, I mean, it's really basic, and this is why we love the 8.6 chassis. It's really versatile, it's very challenging to drive. The live axle, you know, while a lot of people, technology-wise, yeah, there's a lot better stuff, but they're just fun, engaging, and people are just happy to see the cars still being used out of anger and not just becoming
a show car.
A show car.
So let's start at the front. I know this
Okay.
is extremely rare these days. Everything is. Really.
It's as many JDM parts on the car as were available. When I built the car, I went down to my local dealership. I ordered front and rear bumpers from Japan. They showed up at the dealership. They didn't charge me delivery, and I think it was like $700 back in the day.
Wow.
And that also included the brackets for the front and rear.
No way.
Yeah. So and that's just how times have changed. But so I try to utilize as much of the airflow from the front of this car. Everything is homemade. My splitter is homemade the way that I made the brackets to support the splitter. You know, this duct actually used to go to another box I had that would cool the brakes. But as temperatures in South Texas get really hot, I removed it so I could get more airflow to the radiator and to the oil cooler. So it's kind of hard to see under here, but I actually use a Scirocco radiator that you could buy off of Summit Racing for a couple $100. It comes with a fan and a shroud. And since I have an expansion tank that was built, that allows the proper expansion of the coolant. So the car never really overheats. Yesterday I was seeing probably around 180 to 200 just after bashing on it for as many laps as I possibly could. So engine-wise, it's just a stock Lexus 95 model, so this is a skinny rod engine with a little higher compression. A ton of help and parts from Techno Toy Tuning, T3. When I first bought this car, it was an unfinished swap. I think I got it out of Wisconsin. It had a silver top 20 valve in it. It would start, but it wouldn't run. So I went out and I got a Mega Squirt using the original Edis Ford crank trigger setup, and I did my first standalone, and it was a terrible nightmare. It was all the money for 150 horse, and I was super disappointed. But I was picked up by Super Street back whenever they still did that kind of stuff, and it was a feature car back then. It left my hands for a few years. I sold it. I traded an EG6 hatch that I had built to get it back, pulled all that stuff out of it to make room for an F-Series swap. Okay. The F-Series swap, unfortunately, I had a really good deal on one, but it fell through. And after that, I was scrambling trying to figure out what I was going to do to power the car. I saw a guy over in New Zealand, of course, you know, the Kiwis, they love to stick V8s and stuff. And I saw the V8 swap. There was a guy here in the States that was a drifter, and he basically answered an email back whenever we didn't have really access, not even forums for the most part.
Wow. And
he's like, yeah, this is what I did. I made motor mounts using cardboard templates. They literally are sliding into the factory locations on the crossmember. So it was nothing. It was almost like it was supposed to go in here. And you can see all the room and space, you know, I mean. I followed the adapters for the transmission, the W58 Mark IV Supra non-turbo gearbox. It's adapted to the V8. The shifter is a new thing that I put in this car recently, and it's a part from Australia. The guys over at Cube Speed build an exceptional W58 shifter. It changed the whole way that this gearbox felt. I've got my oil coolers in the front, and I actually have my oil filter relocation kit underneath the front bumper, but I just tried to make everything serviceable. I pulled the front of this car off in about 5 minutes, and that's how I suck it up into the trailer and move it around.
So I know there's obviously a lot of help from a T3 from Annex.
Annex. So let's talk about the Annex suspension. The other car, I tried their Annex suspension last year for Super Lap Battle, and it made a huge difference. The car felt so much better, so much more planted. And I asked the guys if they could help me out with something for grid life, and I'm on the Fast Road Pros. We are on a 9K 5.5 Swift with their dyno shocks, and the car is so compliant over the bumps. It feels really, really good. When these tires get some heat in it, I can feel everything working well. I can feel the rear end moving the way that it should, all the motion. And I'm really happy with Annex, and I'm really happy with their customer service and everything that they've done. They are really working hard to develop new parts for the AE86, and that's a really cool thing about the chassis, that companies are still building parts for this aging box.
It's what, 35-year-old now at this point almost,
Yeah.
no? You know, versus a lot of newer things. This thing, we know it wouldn't be as quick as a performance car, but the love for it is something that you see throughout this theme of these builds, is the passion. And that's what we like to highlight, the passion, the excitement of when you first drive and the smile that puts on your face. There are very few cars out there that can compete with how this thing feels, and I'm sure you can attest to that as well.
I've had a lot of cars in my car history. I'm 45 years old. I've probably had 75 cars.
Jesus.
I raced muscle cars. I've done SCCA. I've done drag racing. I've had cars as nice as a 2016 M3 that I would actually take to the track and run, and it all came back to this car. When the driver engagement, just how satisfying it is when you can squeeze a lap out of this thing and you chase down that car that's in front of you that probably costs 60 grand. You know, it's very satisfying. It's part of it. The 8.6 is an underdog car. We all know the underdog story behind the car, and it's just really hard to explain. You know, and then every guy that owns an 8.6 that drives one hard, they're gonna tell you the same thing. There's like, man, there's no other car that feels like this go-kart. You know, and it's all manual. There's no ABS, there's no power steering, there's barely power brakes, but it's just a very satisfying chassis to squeeze the most out of it.
This is a full interior car.
Right.
And for a track car like this is just pristine.
It's rough. I'm in track mod because of the rules, which puts me in kind of a tough class.
Yeah. In case you don't know, track mod, street mod only allows for +2 cylinders from stock, so you can go 6-cylinder swap on this, but you can't go +4, which is kind of stupid because I honestly think this car should be in
street mod.
Look at it.
Yeah.
Look at it. It's got more interiors than most street mod cars out there, actually.
But it's still got a stereo and all the speakers. You know, it's actually really drivable on the street. You know, it works out well, but that's just the way that we're classed, and I'm not really that concerned with it. I'm just here to have a good time and drive this car and grid life. This is my first event, and so far it's been absolutely awesome. I've got the checkerboard fanboy floor mats, you know, and I'm gonna own that. I love Suchiya. I love all things 8.6.
Who doesn't?
I mean,
period correct.
Absolutely. I've got one of the cheaper seats, the Corbeau F1. This is a really good entry-level fiberglass back seat, fixed seat. I use Garage Start mounts. Garage Start really makes the best mount for the 8.6 chassis. It gets the seat as low as possible. It gives me lots of headroom clearance, and I've been really, really happy. I use a Nardi steering wheel just because I'm a baller like that.
Period correct.
Period correct. Period correct. So, you know, I mean, other than that, it's completely stock. The back seats are still there. I've got a bolt-in auto power roll bar just so that I make the class and make the rules. It had a good harness bar in it from T3, but they wouldn't allow it, so we put the roll bar in here. that probably added about 70 pounds overall. So, but
speaking of weight, what's like, say, how much extra does the engine weigh compared to the 4G?
when I built the car, the internet was on fire about how I ruined it because I put this big heavy V8 in it. After putting it on the scales, I think I gained 100 pounds difference overall on the front axle. So when Jackie gets the chance to drive this thing at speed, hopefully, then you know, he'll be able to attest to the way that the car feels. Having a 4AG car, it will be interesting to get feedback. I've never had, other than the 20 valve car that I autocrossed, I never had anything that I could drive to really go back to say, oh, well, this is terrible. In the rear, I have a weird performance differential. It's actually one of his early hybrid diffs that he built for me. When I first finished the car, I'm one of the guys that was making the GTS rear axle extinct. Sorry about that. And it wasn't from drifting. It was all from tire grip. I would get into these bowls over at Texas World Speedway, and every lap you would just hear the diff a little bit louder, until it would just bam.
They are a little fragile, I'll tell you that.
That is an Achilles heel of the 8.6. But fortunately, Weir makes an awesome axle kit and builds a really solid 6.7 differential. So, you know, that problem has been solved, and that's really helped along the way. So the back, I've got, you know, back when these were $300 new for a full set of red line taillights.
Porn.
Don't get that anymore.
Well, technically I have that on my car, but yes, you can't really get that a lot anymore.
My favorite piece of the car is the factory Toyota fiberglass rear hatch.
Oh! I didn't even know this thing existed.
Toyota did make parts for their
Final call
for the SCCA cars and cars that competed in class back in the day. They did make a lot of fiberglass parts, and this just happens to be one of the pieces that they made for the AE86.
Wow.
Now, fender flares are CBY, and I will tell you that I've never had aftermarket fiberglass body panels that fit like those did. They literally slapped up against the car, I riveted them in, and that was it. I was like, wow, these fit amazing.
And they do look very good.
Yes, well, and that's how I can swallow the 15x10 negative 25, and I've got a 3/4 inch spacer on the back. All the Aero is homemade. I make everything out of foam poster board, and then I take it to a local circle track shop, and they will make it out of aluminum for me. So.
Same thing with the diffuser as well, right?
Yeah.
I just love this. I cannot not love it. You know, the 86 invokes something, and it always invokes a child in us to like giggle.
Yeah,
I giggle whenever I look at what being driven hard. It's just awesome.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the cars and the history of the car, it's nice that it's still a relevant chassis after all these years. And I don't want to take away from Civics or Miatas or any of those cars. I think they're super rad, and I enjoy all of them. But this just happens to be the shit box I have.
we don't use the S word around here. I will never allow anyone to call this a shit box. Any other A6 maybe, not this one. Anyway, thank you, Josh, so much.
No problem.
So good.
I will take you.
This as an opportunity to maybe mention what kind of stuff you're up to, Jackie. Like, why weren't you here yesterday, Jackie? Jackie, why weren't you here yesterday?
Might have gone and bought an A6. might have gone and bought an A6. My love for the chassis, my love for this life of struggling with a lever axle, manhandling it through the corner. My heart is begging to go out and counter steer till my heart is content. And what better chassis than to do it than an AE86 and maybe racing in GLTC.
What? GLTC 86? That sounds incredible. I would love to see you pound the champagne bottle
in GLTC.
In an 86. That would warm my heart. I would, wherever it was I was watching it, I would be standing on a table screaming, yeah! So
86 owners around the world should let out a hellacious roar for when we finally step on the first place. That'll be a while. That's
Yeah, we're not going to talk about how it might be Honda powered.
God damn it, man.